Hello and welcome to the wonderful world of Carminelitta. And this time we have a very, very special guest for an interview. So I'm very, very happy to introduce you to Phoenix James. Sorry. So hello and thank you for taking part in this interview.
Hey, very, very honored. Thank you.
So my first question is a very basic one. For people who are not really familiar with you and what you do, could you introduce yourself in a few words?
Um, I'm Phoenix James. I'm a writer, actor, poet, spoken word recording artist, and filmmaker.
Is that it? Because I know you do many other things. Okay, so my first question is related to your new film, which is entitled Love Freely but Pay for Sex. Once again, just very briefly, because we'll go into details about the film more, but for someone who doesn't know what this film is and what it is about, could you just, in a few sentences, tell us about it?
Love Freely But Pay for Sex is a documentary style mockumentary film, and it's about a pay for sex policy that the government are trying to introduce. Basically, what's happened over a period of time in Great Britain is people have become frustrated more and more with taxes and bills and affording to put food on their tables and feed their kids and live, basically, keep their cars on the road, that type of thing, pay their bills. And what's happened is this frustration has grown and grown and grown the more the government have created more and more cuts and, the price of things rising, and people have become more and more frustrated with this as time has gone on. So what's happening in the film is, in this frustration, people are like, what do I own? I don't own anything. The only thing I own is myself. And over this period of time, people have began selling their bodies as a way to make money, as a way to make some extra income to live, to survive. So what's happened, basically what's happened, a system developed where it's kind of working out. Now, people are not really happy, but they're making a bit more money, and, they're getting by. Selling sex, selling their bodies, basically, has become this thing where 89% of the people in Great Britain are living this way, making some extra income. And while this has been going on, the government have been observing how much money is being generated in the economy in Great Britain, and they're among themselves. They're like, look at this, look how much money is being generated. We need to get on top of this. We need to work out a way to regulate this, to regulate tax and legislate this. And so what they're planning to do in the film is introduce a pay for sex policy where you'll basically pay tax on any sexual intercourse you have with anyone if you're not married to them by law. And that is what the film is all about.
Okay, I really like the fact that you mentioned in the film, because that is a point that a few people have a problem understanding. But yes, okay, I'll now play a track. I know it's not great to cut the interview that way, but just for people to discover another side of your art, I'll play a track that you released many years ago now, which is one of my favorites.
Oh, thank you.
And really shows what you can do as a spoken word artist and poet. So it is called If Poetry is a Woman. I'll play this right now, and we'll come back in a few to talk more about Love Freely but Pay for Sex.
If poetry is a woman, then tell everyone I'm seeing someone, and have been for a very long time, that I've had a lot of time to think, and everything is gonna be fine. If poetry is a woman, then tell everyone the wedding is not off. I've changed my mind. Whether lawfully or unlawfully, I take her as my wife for the rest of my life, to have and to hold till death do us part, and that even in death we will remain together, inseparable, just as we were from the start. And that when I die, they'll bury me with my dear poetry in my heart. They'll say his woman was his true love among all his works of art. If poetry is a woman, then I wish to consecrate the vows now, to only make love to one woman, the same woman, every night, or whenever we like, until our hearts delight. We will be with each other and speak with each other about everything nothing. We will small talk and talk deep about life and all that we seek until we are complete. And if ever she's asleep, I'll write her by candlelight on vanilla colored sheets, and there I'll stay, studying her features in awe and transfixed, until daylight dawns upon her beauty once again, and she awakens and arises once more like a phoenix. If poetry is a woman, then tell everyone that I've now got all the answers to their questions about me being in love, and that I'm now totally ready for commitment, and that finally, one woman is enough, that I'm a changed man, and that I'll be somewhere with the wife tonight. Even if they see me hanging out at the club, I'll be with her. All the one night stands and short term romances, I've given them up. If poetry is a woman, I'm gonna raise my daughter with poetry, so she can grow to see exactly how a woman should be. And if poetry is a woman, I'm gonna teach my son how to treat poetry, so he will grow to see how to treat life and how life is supposed to be. If poetry is a woman, then you can go ahead and call off the search. Tell them I finally found one I'm gonna love with all that I'm worth, and that she will undoubtedly be my first true love, and that with the things she does, she's got me stuck to her like glue and hooked like a drug, and no rehabilitation is necessary, required, welcome or wanted. Tell everyone I said I'd rather stay intoxicated, induced and under the influence of her instead. I can't resist her, I want her, and yes, her words always go to my head. We lay down, I touch her, she touches me, and yes, I get ink stains all over my bed, but never any regrets. Cause if poetry is a woman, with her I've earned and learned my respect. I adore her every aspect, and if she is calling me to her aid, I'll be there to accept. And if she wants me for her slave, I will fetch, carry and collect to satisfy her request. With her ball and chain around my neck, I promise to properly serve and protect her interests, to inspire and express, and to stand by her regardless of the effects. The only word she won't know is neglect. And if anyone to our union should object, we will simply live poetically incorrect. Cause she fulfills me, and every day I want more of her, as our relationship grows more beautiful and more complex. The only things I've ever really been addicted to are poetry and sex, and the only things that have ever caused me any real pain are poetry and sex. But if poetry is a woman, then God knows the only thing I'm prepared to remain faithfully committed to is poetry. The only thing I've ever really been able to call my own, so what else could one expect? And when they speak of our wedding, they'll say, this is what I said. I love no other more than my beloved poetry. So with this pen, I thee wed.
Okay, so now we're back with this interview with Phoenix James, who's here to tell us about Love Freely but Pay for Sex. So you gave us a very interesting introduction previously. Now, what I want to talk about specifically is about the outrage and controversy this film has created, which apparently was not really something you expected, or at least not to that extent. So could you tell us a bit about those negative reactions and feedback you received?
Yes, definitely not to the level I expected. Definitely way beyond that. Yeah, it's been an interesting ride in terms of the controversy that the film has created. it's a controversial topic, and I knew that initially. I just didn't realize how much, and I guess, I knew I was making a film, that was presented as a real life documentary, but I didn't realize to the extent how serious people would take it. You know, it's funny. I have people that actually used to speak to me before that don't like speak to me anymore. They kind of like disown me, and this is like people who are not involved in the film, and even people who are in the film themselves, who actually have, amidst this controversy that the film has kind of stirred up, they kind of distance themselves, they're in the film, but they're like, well, I need to separate myself from anything to do with this film.
Yeah, I saw that actually. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been interesting, and it's only like it's early days. It's interesting where it will all go. But I've had lots of different things. I've had press calling me up, and they're like, where did you get your your statistic of 89% of people in Great Britain frown? We haven't been able to find anything, and I approached certain people to cover the film as well, in the media, and they're kind of standing away from it and don't want to get involved, kind of thing, and being very standoffish about covering it, on the basis of even on the basis of the fact that this young black filmmaker, coming out of Hackney, London, East London, who's managed to pull together this film himself. He wrote it, he directed it, he produced it, he shot it, he casted it, he's even in it, he edited it, and not even on that basis, like a positive story. They just kind of like standoffish from it, don't want to know, kind of thing. It's been a lot going on, and I hope to talk a lot more about everything as time goes on. But yeah, there's been a lot of that kind of vibe. But I just didn't expect. I knew that it was touching on a lot of things, a lot of some buttons, you could say, that would be pushed. But I didn't realize to this extent, and I guess that's art in a sense as well, and at its finest. I don't know, but yeah, it definitely has been that. There's been that element to it quite a lot.
Okay, well, I guess you can't really do something that big and be that successful in other areas of your life and not be criticized, because some people just leave apparently to criticize other people. So I guess that was, that's not too surprising. Probably the extent of it is surprising, but the actual reaction is not too surprising to me. Okay, we'll play another track now for a nice musical break. This one is also a great way to understand your spoken word career. It's called I Write, and it's another one of my favorites. Let's go.
I said it before, so I'm only going to say it once. I write for those born on the 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 4th day of the month. I write for monks and Christians, nuns and Hare Krishnas, those who carry guns and ammunition, all governmental systems, Arabians, Muslims and ancient Egyptians. I write for all those in life desiring higher positions. I write for the man on a mission and the independent woman making her own decisions. I write for Buddhists, Jews and Rastafarians, Hindus, vegans, meat eaters and vegetarians. I write for lawyers and librarians, historians, Taurans and Aquarians, Sagittarians and all the others. I write for baby mothers and baby fathers, barbers. I write for the fishmongers down at the Barbados harbours, for the governments trying to starve us or retard us from feeding us garbage. I write for nurses and doctors, surgeons, pilots in planes and helicopters, hip-hoppers, gate crashers and showstoppers, police and traffic blockers, menders, street vendors on street corners, coroners and mourners. I write for crackheads and kids on mopeds, divorcees and newlyweds, widows and weedheads. I write for the dead. I write for presidents of countries, asses and monkeys, junk food junkies, girls that dumped me and the mob that once jumped me. I write for rapists and serial killers, ex-cons and escaped prisoners. I write for forgiveness. I write pain cause I live this. I write with vividness to create vivid pictures with vivid images. I write for infidelity and religiousness, believers and atheists. I write for the craziest and the laziest. I write for geologists and ufologists, all scientists in all sciences in all fields. I write for big deals so I can eat comfortably and not have to steal. See, I write what I feel. It's hardly fictitious when it's all real. It's what knowledge is. I write for theologists and fools, colleges and schools, tutors and students, unions and movements. I write for health and institutions of self-improvement. I write for newborn babies, men in uniform and scorned old ladies. I write for queens and kings, a drunkard and two tramps going through rubbish bins, natives and foreigners, old war heroes and warriors, emergency services and couriers, beggars and borrowers, campaign leaders and followers. I write for United Nations, illegal organisations, miseducation and my own denomination among the commuters of a packed out train station. I write for the man who tills the plantation. I write for aggravation and lack of patience. I write for maniacs and psychos with no diagnosed head cases. I write in strange places, sometimes alone, sometimes among strange faces. I write for status and for those who think it's wrong for me to want to be famous. I write shameless, not careless or aimless. I write for world peace. I write for rappers, actors, singers and athletes. I write for nightclubbers and lovers, sisters and brothers, my one night stands with no rubbers. I write for poetry and MC, for mic love and CD, for collection and PC, for music and movie, for double publicity, for love and unity. I write for you, I write for me. So hopefully we can see now that the hand that writes is as good as the hand that holds the plough.
Okay, so just before I play this track, we talked about the negative feedback and controversy the film created. But what I want to talk about now is more the positive reactions for once, and also the actual purpose of the film, why you actually created it. But I'm sure many people asked you that already, so switch things up a bit and make it a bit more personal. And actually share part of my feedback, the one I actually sent you when I watched the film, and ask you to react about that. So just a few extracts of what I wrote to you just after watching the film. I find this project very interesting as it makes people think. Whatever people think about this pay for sex policy, they have to think about sex while watching it, how they do it, why they do it, and who they do it with. And I also talked about how paying for sex could mean giving greater value to it, doing it with purpose, and not making it an activity shared with just anyone. And something I saw in the film, which I mentioned as well, is the importance of making it sacred. And you mentioned marriages as well quite a few times. What was the purpose was it part of the purpose, or was there much more to it? Why did you create Love Freely But Pay for Sex?
Well, why I created it, I'm an artist first, and it was born out of that, an artist creating something, being inspired to create the next thing. It was basically, this is 2007 that we're going back to now, when the concept came about. I was, basically listening to, watching a Tina Turner music video, and I was the video is called "A Private Dancer" by Tina Turner, and it's not like a sexual video or anything like that, but it is quite erotic. She's talking about, I'm a private dancer, dancing for money, that type of thing, and basically it sparked this thought of like, wow, imagine if like everyone paid for sex, like if it was the norm to pay money, it was a monetary thing, to have sex with somebody, like everybody, not just like prostitution, but everyday thing that was, just like going to the shop and buying your milk, and that sparked the idea, and I thought, obviously being a writer, being a poet, the first thing I did was write this down, and I started writing these points in favor of this idea just to see, how it would work, so I started writing these points down, and then these points, then later, as I become more involved in film stuff, and I'd come across, basically what I did is I filed it away, didn't look at it again, it was just there, and I'd come back to it again like late 2011, and during that time of being involved in all the film stuff and all that, I looked at it again, and I was looking at it then from a visual standpoint. I was like, wow, there's a lot here, this needs to be, this could be a film, this could be something visual. So then that inspired me to start writing the points into dialogue segments. and those dialogue segments then later became the script, and from there the film was born. So it's in terms of setting out, what I was aiming to achieve, that wasn't there yet. I was just being an artist and creating at the time,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And then later it became, me wanting to make this into a film, and that's how it was born, you know. Um, and later I realized for me it would be a launching pad into bigger things in relation to film and being involved in film. So that's kind of the course it's taken.
Okay. Well, actually, yeah, you were involved in bigger things even before, like with Skyfall, for example, which is probably one of your biggest achievements so far, in terms of, mainstream success.
In film,
So,
definitely, yeah, definitely was I had a feature in there, and it's great to be around, great actors and stuff, and be on a major film set, on a film that has, it's the biggest film in Great Britain to date. So,
mhm.
to be a part of that was, yeah, definitely one of my biggest achievements in that arena. And, to be featured in something that big is great for someone who's just entering into the acting and film world, on any type of scale. So definitely, yeah.
Indeed. Okay, time to play another track, which is, I know I said already those were my favorites, but this one is probably the one that really touched me the most, and I guess it's one of your most intimate and personal songs. And yeah, it's just amazing. I love it. It's called Feel.
Oh, thank you.
Was beginning to feel cursed, wasted, losing faith in relationships. But then the police can only escort a man away from the home of his children so many times before you start to feel that way about shit. Thinking in my soul, I know there has to be much better than this. And sitting in that prison cell long enough can also play mind tricks. I mean, how many times can a man stand a woman disrespecting his mother on her own doorstep before he flips? Or how many times will he refrain from just turning up and breaking the door down when she says no, you can't see your kids? Disturbing the peace. But where is the peace in keeping a father from his child and a child from its dad? Especially when a mother knows that's something she can't give, not to mention something she herself may have never even had. But too often, when a woman feels hurt, when a woman feels scorned, what baby might need and feel ain't really the real issue at hand. It's more like, what is the best weapon I have to hurt this man? Like he hurt me, how dare he leave me? Don't care if he loves his child, he ain't gonna see this baby. And there's me, young 23, wild and crazy, dusting off my fatigues and desert boots from my solo expedition. Egyptian sun still in my braids, skin glistening, Nile water still in my system. 4 years down the road, Virginia heat can't compare. And what I've been envisioning is clear as I'm repositioning, sitting in your passenger seat. And sweetness, I don't think you're listening when I say I'm a stranger here, that I've never felt like this. You came out of nowhere, unknowingly restoring my faith in relationships. And I know we've both had our fair share of crazy shit. That's how I know exactly how this feels for you, when you say you're scared of disappointment. But nothing is certain and our tomorrow is not promised, so let's just share the enjoyment. And to be honest, I've been looking forward to today, us being here together again. You are an extraordinary person, I see myself in you. I feel like you understand me and I want us to be more than friends. And I don't care if that might sound cliche, but these are some of the things I've been only waiting to say since our date, on the train, on the bus, at the show. How do I explain to a woman I really barely even know that I can hear and read her pain, that I am beginning to believe there's more to our connection and it's real? How do I too let go of the fear and the pride of all the layers and the lies to tell you this is how I feel?
Okay, we're back to talk about Love Freely but Pay for Sex. So we talked about the outrage and controversy, we talked about the purpose of the film. Something I find quite interesting is how huge the cast was. I think you had about 60 people on the film. And also, I assume you received a lot of different feedback from different people. So was it important for you in having so many people and receiving so many different feedback from people, like interpreting the film in different ways, to get as many diverse opinions and points of view as possible?
No, is the answer. Basically, the film, the cast, when I wrote the first draft of the film, was only 12 people, was only 12 cast members.
Okay.
That was the initial plan. But as I started writing, I realized there was other areas that I wanted to cover that I didn't talk about that would be so important in this being, if this was like a real life situation, if this was a real thing being introduced into Great Britain as a government policy, how many people it would affect and so on and so forth. And so no, it's having a cast of 60 with main speaking parts was never the plan.
Mm-hmm.
It just so happened that there were all these different elements that I thought, wow, I need to cover this, and then this would be a factor that would be affected, and that happened then. So that's how it grew. That's how the cast grew to the number that it is. It's just plainly out of wanting to cover so many different areas that would be very important if it was something that was going to be introduced.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, basically, eventually you had, many different points of view, which is, I think, a great way for people to actually relate, because I know I don't agree with all people, especially your part, actually. In the film, when I watched yours, I was like, come on. But I think it's quite interesting, that to have so many different situations, because you can relate to at least one of them and see if that's actually how you would react if this policy was actually in place. So I think that was great. Okay, well, time for a new track, I guess. This one is really different from the other ones, but it's another side of your poetry, I guess. It's called Bloodstained Concrete, and we'll come back just after.
As this blood-stained concrete beneath my feet speaks yet another volume of more death in the street, it tells of more police meeting and maintaining agendas of another mission complete by keeping more drug dealers in business, even if this is only for a time at least. It speaks of gun crime on the increase and of mums finding no peace from crying without cease from seeing their young ones dying in the streets. Sometimes it sings when it speaks sad songs of all the wrongs and all the grief. Come stand with me upon this haunting ground, in this taunting place, and hear the cries of this once ordinary grey pave that now wears a blood-stained face, as it tells the in-depth stories of murder, brutality and violation inflicted on innocent victims in countless police stations. It says the same blood running across the floor in there is the same blood you see staining my face out here. Its cold voice cuts through me, raw and authoritative, speaking of corrupt law enforcement officers and fraudulent governments who ship in and fly in weapons and drugs, as if mental enslavement isn't enough without blood on the pavement, distributing them throughout our communities, adding further fuel to our death, decline and disunity. Hurting while they just sit back and watch us destroy each other, discuss how good it's working, then order their wicked workmen, their crooked coppers to arrest and try and pocket the profits off of us in this grandiose designed to meet a grandiose purpose. Black blood continues to spill out into the streets, cause in the law's grand scheme of things it's worthless. Too late for doctors and nurses, cries this here cold concrete as it continues to record these injustices upon its surface. Word is, you might die here on what the local papers called Murder Mile. But don't be discouraged, come stand with me a while upon this haunting ground, this taunting place, where the pavement stays shiny red from the common blood on its face. Yes, shiny red, with more shine than hair design, with products by Nexus, more glistening than a Gucci diamond necklace, runs smoother and faster than a brand new Lexus, draws more attention than a girl group from Texas. Yes, come stand with me and hear these tainted streets cry freedom, freedom from the blood of those bleeding. But there comes no relief from the guns and drugs they keep feeding into our communities, destroying our belief in love and unity. And with so much evil in our neighborhood, it's difficult to see any good. And then we wonder why our youngsters don't behave as they should. It's all in the mind control system of thieves. Don't take my brain away. Need to think, or soon we'll be extinct by this strategically manufactured disease. Mass genocide is taking place outside and on our TVs, right before our eyes, and still millions of closed minds can't see that this is all by design and meant to be. Mentally, physically, and spiritually, it's deep. There goes another soul put to sleep through drugs and gun crime on the increase. Every day it's the same old repeat. And as this cold wind blows through me, I stand here listening to the testimonies of this blood-stained concrete beneath my feet, speaking yet another volume of more death in the street.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about love freely but pay for sex. Thank you for all those very interesting answers. I would like to talk about what's next now, just for the film, all the projects you have related to it, and also all your other endeavors as a director, actor, spoken word artist, and everything else.
Wow, that's a lot. But one thing is with the film is that there's so much involved and there's so many aspects to it, and it's only now that it's come out and people want to speak about it. I mean, it took a little while before people actually really got into it and took any notice, and now that's all happening. And so I can see that every time I talk about it, every time I look at it, every time someone else sees it, it sparks off something else. Something else happens, So I know that it's something that's going to be very relevant for a long time, that people are going to be talking about for a long time. I'm yet to actually have a public screening, for example, things like that. I mean, everything that people have seen regarding the film has all been online on the film's website. So, that's going to help spark a whole new thing. So for me right now, this is really my main focus, is talking about the film, promoting the film, and, letting as many people know about it as possible,
Okay.
So in terms of other projects, I've got so many other things planned I want to do, and this is spinning off other things as well. That's sparking ideas for other projects as well. That cement this even more. But right now it's all about the pay for sex policy. That's my main focus, and will be for a little while.
Okay, cool. Well, this interview is coming to an end. So, is there anything else you would like to talk about?
Wow, what can I talk about? Just basically where everyone can watch the film. Really, if they're interested, if they hear this and they're interested in watching, they can go to payforsexpolicy.com and check it out for themselves, and base their own opinions on the whole thing, basically.
Okay, well, I'll share all the links anyway in the description of this interview, but you have a website as well, I think.
My own website, yes, is phoenixjamesofficial.com.
Okay, yeah, in case they really like the spoken words and
Yes,
want to
indeed.
find out more. So thank you very much for taking the time to answer those questions. Actually, we'll play one last song, which is, I think, a nice closing track.
Yes, you're spoiling us now. You're spoiling us.
It's called Ancestors Song, and yes, thank you very much once again, and I'm sure we'll catch up at some point soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
The ancestors sing a song from within the ink that flows from my pen. They sing and they sing, and closer I push it to them, penning out their aggravations and their pent-up frustration. They sing I must take my station and trust their administration. I am prescribed as the required medication, and I must be willing to accept my delegation as the powerful penicillin device to combat the pathogens infecting this nation. That I must give praise and appreciation, that I am not the worst, neither the last nor first, but the penultimate, sent to quench man's insipid verse, so that today's awakening slaves may not thirst, but open their eyes to realize the plight of their curse, and that there's no price on earth to match their worth. They need to rise from the dirt and recognize that we worked so hard so that you all could be here today. They say we are an ungrateful disgrace. We forsake the sacrifice they made for our life. We are displaced and suffer from a serious case of conceptual incarceration. They say they won't let me rest until I express their indignation in my conversation anytime I bless the mic or take the stage at these occasions. So I bear no resistance to their pentatonic scales that continually haunt my existence and never fail to bring me back to the land of the living when I am slipping, singing, do not give in, do not give in. That I am born as one of their shining stars of hope. That amidst the thorns I'll be the rose that never chokes but continually grows, as long as I never relinquish my position within this mission for which I'm chose. And remember that my grandmother said, no fret, the holes in her dress could never compare to the holes branded into our ancestors' flesh. Though now we compare that to the holes blown into another brother's chest for less than you'd expect from a race established in honor and respect. Nevertheless, never forget the quest we have set, for it is already said, there will be victims of their victims and victims of their test, and there will only be reconciliation when we can finally rest.